Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to our first ever Palestinian American Communities Conference. This year's theme is activism and empowerment. We thought it was a very pressing theme, considering everything that's happening in the world today. We know it's very easy to be discouraged. It's very easy to wonder, what can I do? Why am I here? And we're hoping that through this conference today, we're going to be able to provide you with some answers. So we're hoping throughout the day, the room is going to fill up. So please do monitor your seats, because we are going to expect that by the end of the conference, the room will be full and overpacked. So yeah, and if everyone can move up, that would be great as well. So where did the idea of this conference come from? Actually, so we have a Homeland Project. For those who are not aware of what that is, we send 10 youth between the ages of 18 and 35 to Palestine every summer, where we give them a trip of a lifetime. We show them refugee camps. We let them meet leaders and officials and local people. We have them go and experience the land, experience the food, experience the culture. Really, it is a life-changing experience. It's something that, if anyone's ever been on it, which you will hear from them very shortly, it really is something that when you come back, you don't come back the same. And the goal of this project really is to show what's on the ground. So we can talk theory, which we're going to be doing all day, but you won't really understand it until you see it. You see it yourself. So we're hoping that everybody is going to enjoy this conference and have a great time. In your packets, if you have not gotten one, we have one in the front. You do have a notebook and a pen, and you have your program. So please make it a point to take some notes and really think and reflect throughout this entire convention. We really are happy and excited to have all of you. So on behalf of myself, on behalf of the board of directors, and on behalf of the PAC staff and team, we really, really thank you all for coming. And I want to give a special shout out to Dunya Alawi and Diane Isa, who are the amazing staff members who helped put all of this together. So without further ado, we're going to be introducing the first session. So Noor Siam and May Abdel-Jabed will be emceeing that session.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for the first annual PAC Conference on Activism and Empowerment. My name is Noor Siam, and this is May Abdel-Jabed, and we will be moderating the first session of the day on the Homeland Experience. This session will highlight the critical importance of gaining a first-hand, on-the-ground experience in Palestine as offered through PAC's Homeland Project. This project was established 3 years ago with the goal of equipping participants with an on-the-ground experience that would allow them to develop their own Palestinian identity as Arab Americans and to become knowledgeable ambassadors and advocates for the Palestinian cause. This session will go through their experiences, and we'll hear from the panelists on what they did on the trip and how you can apply for this project.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. So joining us today are going to be 4 participants that actually experienced the Homeland Project on the past 2 years. Murad Abdel Fattah, Ali Jaloudi, Abir Badges, and Abrar Ibadi. Can you all please join us on the panel? Thank you all for being here. So the application is open, and we are accepting applications until March 31st. But right now, let's just get into the questions. What does the Homeland Project mean to you? I know it's a very general question, but I think starting there will be a good point.
First, thanks to PAC putting this together, and congratulations on the first annual conference. Hopefully many more successful conferences in the future to come. Thank you all for being here. It's an honor for me to be a part of this. What did the Homeland Project mean to me? Obviously it meant a lot. For me, it was the first time actually going to Palestine. Unlike many, I didn't really get to go to Palestine growing up. I don't have any more family there. I don't have any people there that I can go visit. So most of the time when people go, it's to visit family and friends. For me, this was my first experience in Palestine. And it meant a lot for me because, growing up with Palestinian identity, kind of by default, you're an advocate for Palestine. It's part of who you are. It's part of your identity. So for most of my life, I've been an advocate for Palestine. I've identified, but I never got to actually go there see it for myself. So for me, this is kind of the completion of my identity or who I am. I got to, finally see what I'm advocating for, finally be part of and experience what it is that I felt so passionately about. So for me, it was certainly a trip of a lifetime. The group that we went with was such a great group. We all got to kind of experience such a passionate and important experience together. And so for me, it was just, something I'll never forget, experience of a lifetime, certainly.
Hi, everyone. I'm Abdad. So the Homeland trip for me was basically ditto to everything you said. And to elaborate on that, I'm somebody who grew up in an Egyptian household, and I was always taught to care about Palestine and to fight for Palestine, and to be given the opportunity to actually go and experience it firsthand personalized it so much more for me. Like I was always outspoken and an advocate, but now it became something that I saw firsthand. There's nothing that anybody could say in the media that could take away from my personal experience, what I saw with my own eyes. And it also reinforced the idea that this is something that I also need to pass on to my children and my family, and something that I need to talk about with my relatives, that this is something that we all care about and we're all responsible for. So yeah, not only was it wonderful to see Jerusalem and see all the different parts of Palestine that I probably wouldn't see on an average trip, because like you said, I don't have family there either. It also personalized it to see the occupation firsthand, and to, when I do speak with other people about it, say, well, you can't take away from my narrative because this is what I saw. I saw the wall. You went to Israel, but you didn't see the wall, and it's incredible how you could miss something so grand and divisive like that. So that's what it was for me personally.
If you guys could, would you talk about what the biggest eye-opening experience you had while on the trip, if anything sticks out in your mind?
So the biggest eye-experiencing event that happened when we were on the trip was when we went to Khalil, so Hebron. The conditions that they're living in, just noticing, you see stuff on Facebook, you see stuff on social media, the news, the conditions that they're in. We went in, half of Khalil, the stores that are there, the business owners, they're not there anymore. They completely shut them down. You see, as we were walking through, I guess it's considered the shopping area of Khalil, you notice that just walking around, you see that there's nets on top where the settlements are basically right on top of everything. So you see how people are throwing trash on top of all the Palestinians. You see the conditions they are. You see the military base that's literally right in the middle of Khalil. And how they're very limited on what they could do there. So that was something that was really eye-opening to me. Even going into Masjid Ibrahimi, it's a gated. We actually got stopped going into the masjid, so they have barriers where they literally stop down and they try to intimidate you by. They came down the stairs. So Ali was with me on the trip that we went. They come down the stairs and they had these rifles pointed right at us, trying to intimidate us, making sure that we're scared to go in. So that's something that was really, really surprising to me. I mean, not really surprising, but just something it doesn't happen over here.
An eye-opening experience for me was when we went to a refugee camp, and one of the, we were visiting homes, and we spoke to one of the guys who had 7 children. He was basically telling us how he wasn't able to finish school or support his kids, and they were basically in the street, and he was just telling us he went through anxiety and depression, and how he wasn't able to finish his degree, and he had to just try to raise his children on his own and stuff, and he started losing memory. So he was telling us, be grateful for what you guys have, be grateful for your education, and he started crying. We wanted to spend a little more time with him that day. I remember, because he's telling us the things that you guys take for granted is the things that we can't have here, the things that we struggle to find here. So it was just eye-opening, because it was we're not grateful for the little things. We saw kids in the street playing that had that were telling us they only have water for 3 days, and then I think they said it cuts off for 4. So they were just telling us, this is something that we have to deal with, and then it made me realize why are we not grateful for these things on a daily basis?
An eye-opening, the whole trip itself was eye-opening, but something in particular was that I realized throughout the entire trip, regardless of where we went, whether it was Khalil, Deir Dibouane, I was going to Haifa, I was passing through a checkpoint, the Palestinian people have really held on to their identity despite the occupation. And I don't even know if that's eye-opening because it's almost, the strength is expected, it's known. But to see how people continue to thrive despite being occupied, despite there being checkpoints almost everywhere you go, despite there being a wall, people are continuing to thrive. And it made me think, what's our excuse for not fighting? If these people are living under the harshest conditions, what's my reasoning for not speaking out, for not making myself uncomfortable for 5 minutes to talk about this with somebody who's probably not going to talk to me again because they can't tolerate the truth. So that was something that I definitely held on to, is these people are living under such dire circumstances and they are continuing to do well, to educate their children, to, plant their crops and, take care of their land. And we just can't be silent on this side of the world. That's for me.
Ali?
For me, just overall experiencing the occupation was very eye-opening. Again, you hear the word occupation in the media and on the news, and generally just throwing on the occupation. But experiencing it firsthand, whether it's going through the checkpoints or just having all these military bases or posts, seeing all the soldiers with their rifles kind of just pointed in your direction. You're kind of just treated as a security risk just by, just because of who you are, the color of your skin, or your name, or where you're from. One thing I remember vividly was when we're on our, tour bus coming back, from where we were through Ramallah, and it's nighttime, and we had a day full of activities, so we're all kind of tired. But the bus driver insisted on keeping the lights on in the bus, and it's kind of annoying when the lights are on in the bus and it's dark outside and you're kind of tired. And so I said, why are the lights so bright on? He said, well, it's because when we pass through the checkpoints or pass through the soldiers, they have to be able to see us so they don't think that we're up to something, up to no good, basically. And to me, it's like, wow, just because of who we are, we have to go through and that's such a minor inconvenience, right? Just having the lights on in the bus. But it just stood out as, we have to have a spotlight pointed at us because otherwise we're considered a security risk. Or when, we have to stop and get checked, every post we go because, again, just by default, we're a security risk. I remember vividly, he and I entered the border together, Murad, and the way we did it was we kind of broke up into groups because we didn't want the border, we didn't want them to know that we were coming in as one huge group because, certainly we would have been denied. So we kind of broke up into groups and we made it seem like, we're on vacation together, visiting family. By coincidence, we're also related. So they held us for how many hours did they hold us for? About 6 or 7 hours we were held up at the border. They held us the longest, obviously, because we're young men, and they just had us waiting there. And we were resilient. We just kind of hung out and played cards and ate nuts and visit and just chilled with our feet up, or whatever. But everywhere you go, every step through the process, you're treated as a security risk just by default. And those are all part of what experiencing the occupation is. And I don't want to necessarily compare our experience to the experience of the people that are living there because that's their day-to-day lives. We're there for a week or 2 weeks. To us it's just minor inconveniences, but to them, if you're conducting your daily life and having to go through all of that, it's indescribable. So to me, that was very eye-opening to see kind of how they're treated as third-class citizens just by default.
Thanks, everybody, for sharing. I think that's really important to point out both how the occupation is like shoved in your face the second you get there, but then on the other side of it, you see how everybody's still kind of resilient and they find happiness in each day. And that's something that you really can't experience unless you actually go there yourself and see it. So that kind of leads us to our next question, right? Since you've come back, what's one perception that has changed that you didn't have before?
I feel like I slightly mentioned this before, so I'm kind of just going to back on my previous comment on how, just the idea that Palestinians are really continuing to be resilient, and they're continuing to fight the fight despite how difficult their circumstances are, especially for us privileged human beings going there. We're like, oh my God, how can people live through this? And you sit and you talk with the Palestinians, and they are full of hope, and they are just getting started, and they're gonna keep fighting. And that's something that I don't know if I anticipated people being more pessimistic, but I think just seeing how optimistic they are, how despite the world, the government, just the United Nations, everybody failing them, and the countries beside, the neighboring countries also failing them, they continue to have so much hope. That's something that I've definitely held on to, and that our work is only just, we're just getting started on our work, and that we have to continue resisting in every form.
Going off what Abrar was saying, I agree with we have to keep fighting. I feel like for them, they have so much hope. They have, one thing when we used to ask them what was their biggest fear, they used to say, that we come back to America and we don't talk about their struggles. We don't talk about them. We don't mention how, there's people that are in jail for no reason. So that was their biggest fear. To them, they were like, just do us one favor. All we ask is that you guys put up a fight for us. So one thing that, to me, it made me come back and fight harder for them. I've always been active in talking about Palestine, but it made me just fight for them twice as much, because it's seeing them struggle, and now I'm like, well, it's not fair. Let me make sure that people actually know what's really happening to them.
Is there anything that when you came back, that you felt like you needed to share with the people around you, a particular lesson that you wanted to share with whatever, like a non-Arab audience? Your colleagues or your students, what was the message that you wanted to get out to them?
That they don't know the truth. Basically, the media is all lying. Something that I've made it a point to just talk to people, and that's something that my group as a whole, we were all girls, and we decided that when we came back, we're going to have a conversation with somebody, a conversation that made us uncomfortable, and a conversation that also made the person in front of us uncomfortable, to talk about Palestine. I've made it a point to actually talk about the Waldorf Hotel, because, Banksy's the artist, and it's
explain what that is for people that don't know.
Oh, yes. The Waldorf Hotel is a hotel that's right in front of the wall, and it's all of Banksy's art, so he has a lot of different things. I don't even know how to explain it. I'm probably doing a bad job. Beit Lahem, yeah. And
it also has an exhibit that features a lot of, kind of traces the history of the occupation, and has a lot of, artifacts from the occupation. So there's bullet casings, and there's just art.
They simulate certain situations. They have a phone that you pick up, and it's what a Palestinian person would be hearing if an IDF soldier was telling them, you have 15 minutes to evacuate your house, you're about to get bombed, basically. So it recreates a lot of experiences that the Palestinian people go through on a daily basis, and it also faces the wall. So it really highlights the divide, and it highlights the oppression, I think. So that's something that I like to talk about with people, and I tell them, fine, you don't want to hear the Palestinian side? Here, look at somebody else who's not Palestinian or not Arab, and this is what his art is, and this is what he has to say. If you're so, keen on, you think everything, people are just hyping it up and it's not as big of a deal, then fine, you need to look at this side of the, the conversation.
I had a coworker who, he was asking me where I was from, so I started telling him about Palestine. He's like, well, I've never heard of Palestine. So I was like, he's like, I want to go to Jordan for Christmas break. I was like, well, you just cross the bridge and you go to Palestine. I didn't think he was going to go, but he ended up going. And he was like, can you send me a list of all the places that, you want me to go, that you think I should go to? So I sent him a list of the refugee camps, the, mosques and stuff there. He actually ended up going, and he's like, it's beautiful to see, he's like, I'm sorry that you guys are under occupation, but he actually went to a hotel, and he's like, it's so nice to be able to see what you guys are going through. I'm sorry that you guys go through this, but I was able to see both sides. Now he watches the news or anything about Palestine, and he's like, well, this is false. This is not what's really happening. I was there to experience it. Now he's actually going out and sharing his experience. He's like, when he wants to go on vacation, he's like, I think everybody should at least take a trip to Palestine once in their lifetime. So like Abrar was saying, when we had to go talk about, we have to go talk to somebody about our experience in Palestine, make them uncomfortable. I feel like by us having that conversation with other people, they're able to go and share their experience and, you know, inform more people. So.
Just very briefly, I just think it's important to kind of arm ourselves with knowledge and then, you know, advocate, you know, do the best that we can to kind of bring back the experiences that we've had and to show people here a different side. You know, become an advocate for, you know, what you represent and what you support, and you know, be good at it. Be able to express yourself well. Be able to explain it, explain the occupation, explain the history, explain what our people go through, explain why the media is wrong. Be able to tell the story to the best of your ability. So for me, you know, I've tried to advocate my whole life, but me going there firsthand, experiencing it firsthand, allows me to come back with more credibility about what I'm talking about, because I was able to say that I've been there and I've seen it, and I know what, you know, what it entails. So that's, I think, you know, just on, you know, not just on us, obviously, as people who went on the Homeland Project, but on anybody who's Palestinian or anybody who just believes in justice and freedom, and equal rights and humanity, to be able to, you know, engage other people and you know, kind of do the best that you can to explain why our cause is just, and to do it to the best of your ability.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Ali. I think that growing up as like Arab Americans and as Palestinians, we like have trained ourselves to memorize statistics on Palestine and to learn the history so that we can defend our cause. But I think going on this trip definitely gives you like the tools and the experience to actually say, I've been there and I've seen this, and I can, you know, people will definitely take you more seriously, unfortunately. Having had that experience, I think you have more of like that kind of authority or credibility to speak on the topic. So I definitely think that's something invaluable that you gain from this experience. So on that note, why do you think people should go on this trip? And
we could go down the line. Why not to go on this trip? This is the trip of a lifetime. You get to go see things firsthand, and I know that's something we constantly keep saying, but it's one thing to share statistics, but it's also another thing to humanize the Palestinian people, and that's something that they're constantly robbed of in the media. They're always just, you know, they're always just a stereotype, but what about their stories? What about the people in the refugee camps? What about the people in Khalil? What about the people who have to go through the checkpoints constantly? And to be able to have that narrative firsthand and to share it with people and to say, that's actually not what I saw. I actually saw X, Y, and Z. Tell me how that would work if it was your family. And I've also, ironically, become more patient with people in that I'm less likely to start up an argument and more likely to just try to have a discourse with the person in front of me and share my experience and just, you know, bring it back to our fundamental rights as human beings. And you get to do that, and on top of that, you get to go to Jerusalem and so many places that Palestinians are robbed of, and they're not even able to do those simple things. Like, they don't get access to Jerusalem. I remember Amon Azih couldn't go with us the day we went to Jerusalem, and it was so heartbreaking. He was, you know, the backbone of our entire group, and to see him robbed of that opportunity because some soldier has some sort of authority over him, he can't pass that. It was so heartbreaking. And you have the opportunity to go and see these places and come back and be the voice of the Palestinian people and be the voice for humanity, basically. I mean, I can't think of any other reason more.
Going off what Abrad is saying, I feel like you can fight for Palestine, but once you actually go there and experience what they're going through, you fight twice as harder. So this project is important. I feel like everybody should be applying because it teaches you, like, it shows you how, like, what they're going through. You're able to experience even little things. Like, I remember when we went to Lifta, and we were all in the bus, and, you know, Jews started throwing the rocks at the bus and stuff. So it's, like, little things that they have to face. We were, like, so scared, and it's, like, little things that they have to face on a daily basis that we just experienced once, and we're like, oh, my God, like, what is this? So we're like, why not share this? Why not fight for what they're going through? You can follow. It's easy to, like, follow a page, I feel like, off Instagram or something, and see what they're going through, but you won't really fully understand it until you've been in their shoes, until you've experienced it at least once or twice.
I'd like to go on this trip. Like I said before, this is an experience of a lifetime for me, for several reasons. I mean, obviously, we're talking about, you know, Palestine as something that's highly politicized, and obviously we should discuss Palestine as something politicized, because we're talking about policy here, right? That's what politics means, policy, and we're trying to change policy, and so we need to engage in this conversation. However, for me, there was more to it. It was also the cultural experience. I was very happy to see that, still a lot of parts of Palestine and the occupied territories, Bethlehem, Nazareth, still have such a strong, prominent Arab identity. To me, that was something that was it was also eye-opening. It was kind of surprising for me, because you go there and certain parts that are completely occupied, you've kind of just seen the ethnic cleansing and the landscape change. But for me to be able to see that the people are still persevering in their culture and in their identity, music, food, art. We got to go to these amazing museums. We got to go to Mahmoud Darwish, which was amazing. We got to see so many different things, historic mosques. And so to still see that, our identity and our culture is still persevering, and that people still, hold on to those roots, to me, that was something that was really important. So, besides going on this trip to kind of be able to see, all the policy issues that we talk about, to kind of go back to your roots and remember what it is that makes us Palestinian. Because I also think that a big part of advocating for Palestine is also just kind of holding on to your identity, not just the political stuff, just, adat and taqalid, all the things that we have to hold on to, because it's who we are, it's our identity. So for me to kind of go back and see that, all the things that we try to bring here and instill in our families and all of our values here, to see it still strong and persevering there, to me that was something that was very beautiful. And I think that when we advocate for Palestine and when we show people what Palestine is, we also have to show them the beauty in our culture and all the great things that we bring in our culture, not just the injustices. Obviously, the injustices are priority and very important to us. But when you present yourself, you have to present the best of what your culture is, and to remember that and to hold on to it, and then to see it firsthand as something that's still there and still prominent. To me, that was one of the most beautiful things of the trip as well.
So I think they pretty much said everything that I would say. It's definitely an experience of a lifetime. Everybody said the same thing with that. You get to witness the truth of what's going on. They don't want us going, and I encourage everybody, you need to go, and you need to continue to go. So everything that they do, from stopping us at the airport for 6 to 7 hours, they do that intentionally, and we have to make sure that we keep going, because that's not going to stop us from going.
Thank you all so much. That was beautifully said. As somebody that is just fortunate enough to be going back and forth for basically my entire life, I think I've gotten just used to how it is, and I always try to encourage everybody to go as much as they can, as often as they can, so that we don't forget both the fight, but also, like you said, what it is that we love so much about Palestine. So at this point, I'd like to invite members of the Homeland Committee to come up and answer some questions about the application. Inam, Salim, and Min, and Rania. Thank you. Thank you so much to our panel. Thank you. We appreciate it. You guys provided some really great information. Thank you.